Entitled mother is suing me for custody of my daughter. I 22F cut off contact with my mother before Halloween. The reason was she is trying to force me to have my abuser in my life. Her husband molested me from the ages of 13-15 and raped me at 15. I cut her off after she made a fuss about him not being invited to any of my events or my home. I had enough of her disrespecting me and my boundaries. I haven't talked to her for almost 2 months. 2 months ago, I went no contact. I found out she was suing for sole custody. I checked my mailbox last week on Tuesday. The 14th and I have been served with those papers. I couldn't believe what I saw. I was flabbergasted. I am freaking out because I don't know what to do. I brought this to my older sister's attention, my sister from my father's side of the family. She said that she would pay for my lawyer and any legal expenses. I have blocked my mother on all social media. I have had cousins screenshot her posts and send them to me. She is telling her Facebook friends that I'm trafficking drugs in my house, that I'm drunk 24/7, that I'm back on drugs, which I've been sober for 4 years, I'm clean as a whistle. She posted that I'm prostituting. She's telling all kinds of lies. She even said on her Facebook, and I quote, "It's not fair that she won't let me see my granddaughter, and it's not fair that she would let my husband see her granddaughter. I'm her mother. I should have rights to see her baby." Update. On last Tuesday, I got those supposed papers that were me getting served. They weren't even real custody papers. I called around, I called the courts, looked online, and used every resource available to get to the bottom of this. My suit for custody was never even filed. She put fake papers in my mailbox to scare me. Also, it wasn't postage. It was just a plain envelope with my name on it. A suit for custody was never even filed. I'm still no contact. How would you handle this? Titled Family Harasses Me After My Boyfriend Knocks Brother-in-Law on the Ground. So this story happened a week ago. My sister was in town to visit with her husband and 11-year-old son. My boyfriend isn't a huge fan of my sister's husband. My brother-in-law is, as my boyfriend would describe, tactic cool. Basically, he's really into military stuff, even though he was never in the military. While my boyfriend was a U.S. Marine for 5 years. When they met, my brother-in-law tried to act all buddy-buddy and even said these people don't understand warriors like us. My boyfriend finds it annoying both that my brother-in-law is trying to claim warrior status while being a banker, and my boyfriend is not fond of the military after all it did to him, so he gets ticked off when people idolize it. But the problem started when they came over. It was a generally nice night, other than a passive-aggressive remark by the brother-in-law when he learned I was not cooking, but in fact my boyfriend is. I'm a terrible cook, and he's amazing at it, so he generally cooks after dinner. We were all getting caught up in the living room, and their son Jack was getting bored and started walking around. My boyfriend got up after him to watch over him as an excuse to get out of the conversation. This is what my boyfriend said happened. He followed Jack around the house until Jack said he was bored. Trying to be a good uncle, my boyfriend offered to show him his office, and they went inside. My boyfriend is protective of his office, only him and I are allowed inside. So this was a big deal. But my boyfriend wanted to be a good host and uncle, so he showed Jack around the office, showed him his Warhammer armies, the knives he forges, his gaming PC, and everything else. Boyfriend has too many hobbies, until they got to a locked cabinet. Jack asked why it was locked. My boyfriend explained his guns were in there, and if his parents allowed it, he would take Jack shooting one day. A little while later, my brother-in-law followed them into the office. My boyfriend was annoyed. He was in there but felt he couldn't kick him out as his son was in there, and he had the right to be there. Brother-in-law started talking to him about my boyfriend's guns and wanted to see them. My boyfriend was hesitant but felt there was no harm because brother-in-law is a grown-ass man. Also, he keeps the ammo in the garage across the house. He opened the cabinet and asked my brother-in-law not to touch them unless he hands them to him. My brother-in-law promptly ignores this, grabs a gun from a rack, does not check if it's clear. My boyfriend emphasizes that it was a huge no-no and starts waving it around. My brother-in-law then thought it would be funny to pretend to shoot his son, so he pointed the gun at Jack. My boyfriend reached for the gun, knocked brother-in-law to the ground, and secured the gun. Then all hell broke loose. Brother-in-law started screaming at my boyfriend, and my sister ran to check what was going on. Then my sister started screaming about how my boyfriend could let her son near a gun. My boyfriend isn't a yeller. He's not afraid of confrontation, but he never yells. He just calmly put his gun away, locked the cabinet, looked at me with a "these people are idiots" look, and waited for a lull in the screaming. He told them get the fuck out. Brother-in-law got in his face and acted like they were going to fight. My boyfriend just stared him down until brother-in-law backed off. BF 6'3", muscular, and carries himself like a former Marine. He basically just stared my sister and brother-in-law out of the house, never raised his voice, never said anything threatening. But after that, the story my family was told is that he's a sociopath with an arsenal, has PTSD, and all of them are blowing up my phone trying to get me to leave him. Apparently, they even called the cops, but we live in his hometown. The local sheriff taught my boyfriend how to hunt as a kid, so the sheriff knew it was a bees report, but still reached out to me to confirm. I assured him and my family countless times that he is not dangerous or hurting me. It's starting to get to me and I don't know what to do. My boyfriend is concerned for my mental health, but he told me he couldn't care less what they were saying about him. I'm probably going to go low contact until this blows over. I'm just glad we live a couple states away so they can't harass me in person. How would you handle this? My soon-divorced dad feels entitled to hearing about me through mom. I am in my early 20s and my parents are getting divorced. I live in a city about 2 hours driving from them, and I see them every couple months. My dad never really called me when I moved away for school. We maybe talked every 1 to 2 weeks and sometimes would text. When we did talk, it was about his life, never really any interest in mine. Now that my parents are divorcing, he hears even less about my life because he doesn't hear it through my mom anymore, who I'm much closer with. He answers the call with things like, "Hey, stranger," or "haven't heard from you in a while," and it really annoys me. I told him I was making an impromptu visit home this upcoming weekend, and he said, "Well, your mother didn't tell me that." When we do talk, he doesn't care about my life and just wants to talk about his own. For some reason, he still feels entitled to knowing about my life through my mom instead of making a genuine connection with me. TLDR, my dad is getting divorced for only caring about himself, yet feels entitled to knowing all about my life through his ex-wife, instead of making a genuine connection with me. Entitled parent put their kid in my car to say hi to my dog. Yesterday, my dog and I were road tripping back from spending Thanksgiving with family. A few hours in, we stopped to stretch legs and get some water. Pulled into a rest stop, plenty of parking, not very busy. After I let him out to stretch, he was sitting in the back with the windows open while I pulled up directions in the driver's seat. For context, it's an SUV with a 3-seater bench in the back. My dog was sitting directly in the middle, didn't have his head out of the window. All of a sudden, I see a toddler being lifted into and through the open back window by their parent to pet my dog. The child's body was 50% into my vehicle's open window. This wasn't a hand next to the window to get him to come sniff it. The entitled parent is laughing, as is the other entitled parent holding a younger baby, standing next to the parent that's currently trapezoing their toddler into my car. They did not ask or say anything. They just laughed and stuck their toddler into my open window. I was so shocked that I audibly gasped and just turned around and gave them a confused/annoyed look. It took at least 5 solid seconds for them to acknowledge my reaction and pull their kid out through the window. Never apologized, just walked away while still laughing. I have a recognizable, friendly, giant breed dog that kids typically want to pet. Luckily, he's already used to having to interact with parents and young kids. This scenario was just so unsafe to me, though. These parents have no idea if my huge dog is friendly and put their kid in an extremely unsafe situation, let alone the rudeness of just entering someone else's vehicle. In what remote world was this okay to do? I wish I wasn't so shocked and said something.